China has emerged as Pakistan's biggest creditor, with its iron brother accounting for nearly 22% of the country's external debt, totaling approximately $28.8 billion. The next two biggest lenders are the World Bank with $23.55 billion credit and the Asian Development Bank at $19.63 billion. Economy experts argue that Pakistan could soon be merely the supplicant in principal bilateral relations. Hello and welcome to The Print. I am Debdutta, and in this episode of What's Trending in Pakistan, we discuss Pakistan's increasing debt crisis and the role of China. Now, Pakistan's interest payments alone are equivalent to 43% of its export revenues, which is one of the highest ratios in the world. The country is also among the top 3 loan recipients from the International Monetary Fund this year, and all of this is according to a World Bank report. Former Finance Minister Miftah Ismail spoke to ThePrint and said that China is Pakistan's largest creditor because many Chinese companies have built power plants and motorways in Pakistan on credit, which has been good for the Pakistani people and the economy. Now, China is one of the few countries in the world on whom Pakistan has always relied and who have always helped Pakistan. But according to Ismail, that does not mean that they shouldn't have friendly relations with other countries, including those in the region and in the West. He said, and I quote, "As friendly as China is, dependency on any external power is never good. Pakistan can and must adopt policies that take it towards self-reliance." In the year 2023, Pakistan's total external debt, including loans from the IMF, had reached to $130.85 billion or 352% of its total exports. This heavy debt load, which is equivalent to 39% of the country's gross national income, underscores Pakistan's precarious financial situation. As Pakistan continues to struggle with high inflation, soaring debt and a fiscal deficit, the government has turned to bilateral lenders like China, Saudi Arabia and the UAE to ease its burden. In July this year, Pakistan Finance Minister Muhammad Aurangzeb acknowledged the country's need for debt relief and reached out to these countries for help. Pakistani economists, however, don't see any silver linings in this situation. Analysts warned that Pakistan's mounting debt to China could lead to greater political and economic vulnerabilities, potentially undermining the long-term stability of the relationship. Critics also argue that Pakistan's reliance on external financing without comprehensive domestic reforms will not only lead to deeper financial dependence but also further crisis in the future. Former Ambassador Maliha Lodhi, in her op-ed, wrote, "With the country's economic and foreign policy mainly focused on securing external financing and debt rollovers, Pakistan is at a risk of being reduced to a supplicant in its principal bilateral relationships." She further added that when other countries see Pakistan doing what it can to help itself, they will all be the more willing to accede to its financing requests. Absent serious efforts at self-help bilateral lenders, however friendly they might be, will think twice, especially as the beggar bowl approach will be perceived to have become an unshakable habit for Pakistan. Now let's look at China's growing involvement in Pakistan. Pakistan is heavily reliant on Chinese loans, particularly in energy and infrastructure projects under the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. Despite these developments, Pakistan has been unable to meet its financial obligations to China, including a backlog of around $1.9 billion in unpaid dues and an additional $16 billion in loans. This financial logjam has slowed the next phase of CPEC projects and has raised tensions between the two nations as well. A Wall Street Journal article stated that Pakistan is a key example of China's strategy to strengthen ties with developing countries and challenge the US influence. As part of China's Belt and Road Initiative, Pakistan signed $25 billion in agreements a decade ago, including power plants, roads and a port. However, Pakistan had guaranteed Chinese companies annual returns of up to 34% for those power plants, requiring payments for installed generation capacity regardless of usage. Now, this has contributed to Pakistan's growing debt burden. The report states that Pakistan is one of the most prominent examples of China's goal of courting the developing world to challenge the US, which is also a long-term ally of Islamabad. But the power crisis shows that how debt from China can overwhelm the poor countries that receive it. In September this year, Pakistan secured a new $7 billion loan from the IMF, with China assisting in rolling over $12 billion in credit. This deal, along with support from Saudi Arabia and UAE, was critical in averting a default and ensuring continued financial assistance. Despite these efforts, Pakistan faces a mounting challenge to meet key targets set by the IMF, which include privatizing state-owned distribution companies and imposing an agricultural income tax. This crisis is a never-ending loop for the country. This year, Pakistan is expected to miss 5 key targets that the IMF had set for receiving the second tranche of its loan, and the financial burden on Pakistan's budget continues to grow, with the government spending over half of its budget on servicing of debt. Now, for external debt to be sustainable, Pakistan needs reforms that grow its exports, reform its energy markets, and ensure a more equitable tax burden across sectors. So while Pakistan needs to amp up its external debt strategies to not be just a supplicant for its foreign policy relations, for now China seems to be the older brother ruling the equation. This is Debdutta for ThePrint. Keep watching for more such videos.